Ho, ho, ho! Welcome back to the channel, everybody. And much like your local Target in September, I am dressed up in Christmas gear far too early. But it is for a good reason, because today we are taking a look at Hunted the North Pole, where we are going to be taking the role of one of Santa's faithful elves and trying to save him from the grasp of Jack Frost. Now this is coming to us from Best with One, designed by Gabe Barrett, and is actually the second edition of Hunted the North Pole. Now Hunted is a series of solo games that have been going on for a little while now, and it's just one that I haven't come across yet. I've always heard it talked about pretty positively, but I'm so excited to have the chance to make this preview video and take a look at this prototype version of Hunted the North Pole. I think what really caught my interest particularly is the kind of Christmassy theme. I love when Christmas is kind of put on its head and kind of has more of a, not really horror, but more of kind of a creepy, tense factor to it. It's a cool setting to do this type of like infiltration thing where you're trying to save Santa. Now here in front of us we have the setup for the solo game of Hunted the North Pole. Down here we have the elf that we are going to be playing as, which is going to be Becky in this case. You're going to have your character with a couple different stats, and then you're going to have a couple of one-time abilities that you're going to be able to use as we play throughout the game. To the right of Becky, we are going to have our inventory. This is where we are going to be collecting different items as we play, different weapons, and different things to help us survive as we traverse through the North Pole. At the start of the game, we're going to have our peppermint slingshot here that is going to help us deal with some enemies that we might come across as we're playing. Right on top of that, we are going to have our personal player board, and this is going to be used to track two things. It's going to be used to track time. As we do certain actions, we may take a time penalty, and if we ever run out of time, that's going to be one of the loss conditions of the game. Another loss condition is going to be if we lose 5 health. So here we're going to have 5 candy cane hearts here, and as we take damage from enemies, we're going to be flipping them over. If we ever run out of health, that's another loss condition. You're also going to see on this little very cute advent calendar here, there's a couple different spaces with a couple different icons. Now those are going to be different bonuses that we're going to get as we hit those thresholds. So while you run out of time, there are a couple little like treats you'll get to kind of help you along the way as the game starts to wind down. Right above that, we are going to have the North Pole map, and this is where we are going to be tracking our progress throughout the North Pole. There are 20 spaces on this map, and our ultimate goal is to get to space 20, duke it out with Jack Frost, and hopefully save Santa. Over here is a deck of event cards, and every time we move a space on the map, we are going to be flipping over an event card that is going to be some type of situation that's going to happen that we're going to have to resolve. The different random things we're going to encounter in the North Pole. And here we have the biggest and most important deck of the game, the Hunted deck. And these are the cards that we are going to be flipping over to try to find different items and take different actions to actually progress in the North Pole. But hidden in this deck are also various enemy cards that we are going to have to contend with. Now the Hunted deck is going to have 4 primary types of cards. There's going to be item cards, there are going to be movement cards, there's going to be elf companions, and there are going to be enemies. Now every card is going to have a set of icons in the top left. You can see the item has one, the path has one, and the elf companion has one. And those are important because those are the icons that you need to use in order to activate other cards that are in the Hunted row. You can see on the bottom right, this is the cost to actually activate any one of these cards. So if I wanted to take this slingshot ammo, I'd have to discard one other card from the row that has at least 1 magnifying glass. In this case, I could discard this path card in order to get the ammo there. You can see the path card has the cost of 1 foot icon, and that the elf companion here has a 2 magnifying glass icons. So in this case, I don't have enough icons available to me to actually gain her from the Hunted row. And you'll also notice this carrot icon that is able to activate reindeer cards that are also in the Hunted deck. Now, a lot of the item cards are pretty self-explanatory based on what their description are. The path cards will allow us to move 1 spot on the North Pole track here. And then the elf companion cards are added to our party here, and they'll give us some additional abilities and to help us along as we go. Now there are also enemies. Now enemies can be triggered in one of 2 ways. If you just have 1 enemy in the row, totally fine, they don't know where you are. If you ever reveal 2 enemies, you have to fight the stronger of the 2, and everything else in the Hunted row gets discarded. The other way that you can trigger an enemy is that if you ever reveal 2 cards with this little bell icon. That kind of represents the noise you're making as you're, going through the North Pole, and that's going to trigger enemies. In this situation, since I have two bell icons, I have one on the ammo and one on the path card, I would immediately have to fight this enemy and discard everything else. So ideally, you want to avoid revealing too many bells and too many enemies. And so on your turn, you can do one of two things. You can reveal a card from the hunted row here and then choose to activate any of the other ones using the symbols that are available, or you can hide. And hiding is going to allow you to discard all of the current cards that are in the hunted row at the cost of one time. Now you might want to do that if you see a really strong enemy coming your way and you really don't want to fight it. It might be worth hiding to discard it and save you the hassle of having to fight it. Now I'll cover fighting a little bit later, but why don't we play a couple rounds, show you how this works a little bit, and see if we can move a couple spots here and show you what some of these other dice are used for. And if you want to stay off the naughty list this year, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We do a lot of previews and reviews and playthroughs and list videos and all sorts of stuff on the channel. And if you like board game content, I'd love to have you on board. Now, back to our quest to try to save Santa. Now at the start of my turn, I'm going to choose to reveal a card. So this is a path card here. It's not giving me any symbols, and it's going to take 1 foot in order to activate. Let's reveal another one. Okay, we got a gummy bear here. So at this point, if I reveal another enemy, I'm going to have to fight one of them. Let's keep going. Okay, we got a bottle of Christmas Spirit here, which actually has a foot icon available. So at this point, I want to get going on the North Pole Trail here. I'm going to use the foot icon on the Christmas Spirit to activate the path here. So I'll take those and discard them, and I'll move my little pawn up 1 space. Now this is going to bring into play the event deck that's up here. Every time you move 1 space, you're going to reveal one of those event cards and resolve it. If you move more than 1 space, you're going to take 2, and then you can choose the one that you want to reveal. That's going to be the case if you use a reindeer that allows you to move 2 spaces. So now that we've moved 1 space, let's go ahead and resolve the event card here. You pass Mr. Rabbit's house and see him tending his garden. You quickly run over and tell him about what has happened. His opinion is basically, not my yard, not my problem. But if you can find a way to pull on his heartstrings a bit, you might have a chance to convince him and at least give you some vegetables. Roll Charisma, succeed and gain a carrot token. If I fail, I lose 1 time. Now the event cards bring up the kind of challenge system that is in the game, and that is going to revolve around rolling some d20s and trying to get certain thresholds. Now the difficulty threshold is going to be determined by the map that we are currently on. So you can see this number in the bottom left here. That is going to be the difficulty of the current map section that we're on. Right now it's 11, then 12, the next section will have 13. In addition, there is kind of a advantage-disadvantage system that the dice are going to allow us to have. You can see on the first section here, we are going to roll 2 dice and then we can take the best. In this one, we're just going to roll 1 dice, and on the third map segment, we roll 2 and we take the lower of the 2. So there is a cool escalation as we go through the map. Things are going to get harder and harder to succeed. But in this case, we're going to roll 2 d20s here. So we got an 11 and a 9 here. And so that is going to be our results. 11 is good enough to pass, but I do want to point out one other thing that you might notice on the character cards. You can see every character has a couple different stats and a couple different modifiers. So Becky here is going to add 3 to her charisma rolls, 1 to her intellect, 2 to dexterity, and then none to strength. So I would add 3 to this roll, making it a 14. We're already passing, but if we rolled a little bit lower, it could have made the difference of passing or failing. So now we succeeded, we are going to gain a carrot token, and then we are going to be moving on. So we'll take one of these tokens, and this carrot token is going to allow us to activate one of the reindeer and use that as the kind of symbol that we need. Hopefully we reveal a reindeer. That would be pretty cool. So we are 1 space closer to Santa, just 19 more to go. Let's go ahead and keep flipping over things. Another Christmas Spirit. So in this case, I have an enemy as well as a bell icon. So there's a pretty high likelihood that I risk, triggering this enemy to fight. So I'm actually going to spend 1 time here and choose to hide, and I'm going to discard both of these, and we're going to keep going. You can see we would have revealed another enemy, so I'm kind of glad that we hid there. I think it was worth the time. And here, we got our buddy the reindeer. So, similar to all the other cards, on the bottom right of the reindeer is what we need to spend in order to activate it. But we have a nifty little carrot from Mr. Rabbit, so I'm going to spend this token in order to activate the reindeer. And now the reindeer is really cool because it is going to allow us to move 2 spaces instead of 1. So we're going to go 1, and 2, moving at the speed of reindeers. Now, instead of drawing one event card, we are going to draw 2, one for each spot that we moved, and we're going to choose which one we want to resolve. So we have 2 here. A toy soldier pops out from behind a tree and obviously means business. You know these guys aren't the brightest toys in the box, so you begin to explain that you're an elf spy who has been working for Jack Frost all along. And we get to roll charisma. The other one is you're in such a hurry that you don't even notice the large red warning signs you run past. A moment later, you realize that you're in a giant pit of quick fudge. The sticky substance consumes your air jingles, your shoes, and if you don't act fast, it's going to take forever to get free. Roll dexterity, and if we fail, we lose 2 time. Now, Becky is a little bit more charismatic than dexterous, so I think we're going to take and resolve this one. And honestly, you could just eat yourself out of a pit of fudge. That sounds like a not too hard of a challenge to deal with, but okay. So we're going to go ahead and roll charisma here. And that is a 13 and another 9. So we are going to successfully do this charisma check, and then if we pass, nothing happens, so we are all good. If we fail, we would have had to fight a toy soldier, which is no fun. Okay, let's keep it rolling here. Maybe we'll be able to get to the second map segment here. All right, we have a magic snow globe here. A distraction card. Let's go one more. Okay. Here we have another gingerbread card, and this is going to be a good chance to show you guys some combat mechanics here. Now, another thing to note on some enemies, such as the gingerbread and the gummy bear that we saw earlier, is that they have this keyword on the bottom left called combine, where they're going to kind of gather up in a pack and attack you together. So here we're going to have to fight both gingerbread men. Most enemies, if they have different values and don't have the combine keyword, you're going to discard the one that's weaker and you have to fight the strongest one. But here we got to deal with some gingerbread men here. Now, this is going to bring us into combat. Now, we start the game with our trusty peppermint slingshot here, and we are going to have the chance to shoot at them. Now, there's kind of 2 different things that we're going to have to do here. The first thing we're going to have to do is spend 1 time. Anytime you use a weapon, you're going to have to expend 1 time. Another reason that sometimes it's better to hide so that you're not spending time in the actual combat. Now, the next thing we need to do is choose how much ammo we want to spend on this attack. Now, each ammo will allow us to roll 1 die. So we have 3 die on this weapon here, so we could spend up to 3 ammo to roll 3 die. And so I want to really just turn these guys into crumbs, so I'm going to spend 3 ammo here. I'm going to roll the 3 d4s. And we are going to do 5, 6 here, right? And so not super great, but we'll be able to kill this guy because we'll be able to do 4 damage to him. And then we'll have 2 damage left over on the gingerbread man. Now that's going to end 1 round of combat. We're going to take 1 point of damage, and then we are going to have to attack 1 more time in order to kill it. So we're going to have to spend a time. I think we could just roll at least a 2 on this. So I'm going to spend 1 ammo just to roll 1 die. That's another 1. All right, that wasn't great. So we're going to have to deal 1 damage to it. We're going to take another damage, and then we're going to have to spend 1 more time in order to kill it. And we'll just roll 1 more die. Statistically impossible to fail here, right? Okay, now we roll the 4. That's going to kill the gingerbread man, and we are done with the combat. Now, one more thing that happened while we were doing that combat is that we hit the 16 on the time tracker, and that's going to allow us to open up one of these little advent calendar things, which is going to give us a one-time bonus that we can use later. This one here will allow us to make a event challenge check with advantage. So that's going to be really helpful later in the game when we are not just doing this passively and we're making some harder die rolls. And this is how gameplay is going to continue, revealing cards from the hunted deck, trying to get paths and reindeer in order to continue into the North Pole until you eventually get to the 20 spot and have to face off against Jack Frost. Now, Jack Frost has a whopping 20 health, so it is a tough fight in order to beat him. Out of the dozen or so times that I've played, I've gotten to Jack Frost a good number of times, but to have the health and resources still available in order to beat him is a tough one. It is a very satisfying victory when you're finally able to get Santa out of there. One other quick thing to note is that the different character abilities that we have on the bottom here. And so these are one-time abilities that you can flip over, and they are just a couple of strong abilities that you can use. Adding to rolls, re-rolling dice, discarding cards from the hunted row. These are just a couple nice abilities that you have as the kind of things get tougher and tougher, there are some nice pressure relief valves that you can use in order to make things a little bit easier for you. Now, Hunted the North Pole is an extremely charming game. I adore the art of the different creatures, the kind of tongue-in-cheek way a lot of the event cards are written, the advent calendar player board. There's just a lot to love in the overall package that this has. I appreciate that it's a pretty compact game for all the dice and cards that it, has to it. I think that overall it's a really nice compact solo game, which is always appreciated in something like this. It also comes in the very cute VHS case that has kind of become synonymous with Best with One at this point, and I just think that it's an overall a really nice package. Now, mechanically, it is going to be driven by that push your luck aspect, flipping over cards in the Hunted deck to try to gather items and different cards that you need without revealing too many enemies and having to fight them. Now, that can always be dangerous, right? There's a lot of card flipping, there's a lot of dice rolling in this game. You always risk falling into that trap of, losing agency in the game. And I'm really happy to see that I don't think this game falls into that at all. Now, I think the character abilities that you have, the advent calendar tokens that you can get, a lot of the different cards that you can get, there's a lot of ways that you can plan around having to deal with certain cards. Being able to hide, right? If you see a huge, scary enemy that you cannot deal with, you can always spend the time to discard it, and sure, it's going to slow you down, but it still kind of gives you that choice and that decision space to deal with things as you want to. It also plays extremely quickly, like 15 to 20 minutes once you kind of get into the groove of it, and it is just a really nice, snappy experience. It also does something that I really value in my solo games, which is the idea of emergent narrative, where you're kind of telling the story as you traverse through the North Pole. Win or fail, you're still telling an interesting story and interesting gameplay while you're going through. So overall, I think that Hunted North Pole is a really solid solo game here. Again, the first one I'm playing in the series, but I'm really impressed by the overall package. The event cards, the Hunted deck, the kind of light character RPG that you have with your elf here, the really cute player board. There's just so much to really just love about this game. And it's a nice compact package, really easy to recommend. And if you're interested in what you saw in this video here, be sure to check the video description where I will have a link to the Hunted North Pole page that is currently going to be live for another 7 days or so. And they're saying it's going to be delivered by Christmas. So maybe you too can be fighting Paindeer and trying to defeat Jack Frost on Christmas morning, which would be pretty cool. If you have any questions about anything that you saw in this video, please leave them in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer them. I'd also like to thank Best with One for providing a preview copy for this video, and while they did provide the game, the opinions and thoughts are all my own. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this very early Christmas themed video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Ho, ho, ho! Welcome back to the channel, everybody. And much like your local Target in September, I am decked out in Christmas gear. My hat's missing.